Okay, are we live? Welcome to Creature Guide Live Daily News. For those of you that don't know, my name is Ethan. Today we're going over a certain discovery that has occurred on different species of theropods, as well as a different biological, or I guess you could say behavioral trait in long-necked plesiosaurs. And we are streaming on both YouTube, Rumble, and Kick. So, from Sci News, large carnivorous dinosaurs evolved smaller eye sockets to allow stronger bites. I have not heard of this one before, but it could make sense considering when you look at the different species of herbivores. To some extent, the different species of horned dinosaurs like the ceratopsians, the sauropods, or long necked dinosaurs, stegosaurs, even ankylosaurs, they might have very well larger eye sockets compared to their body size. This can also be a somewhat similar trait that we see in different species of large mammals, medium sized mammals today. Actually, in fact, probably even different species of smaller mammals like the shrews, even different species of rodents. This can make sense if you're looking at different species of whales, considering whales are carnivores. So, in new research by Dr. Stephen Lautenschlager from the University of Birmingham analyzed the shape of the eye sockets in 410 specimens of dinosaurs and related species. Well, that's quite a number, though it says 410 specimens of dinosaurs and related species. I think the term would be related groups of archosauromorphs. So maybe different species of crocodilomorphs, other different species of pterosaurs, so the winged reptiles, as well as birds. Trying to think of somebody else, maybe certain other like smaller groups of marine reptiles, possibly even the larger marine reptiles like mosasaurs, plesiosaurs themselves. So seems that we have picture of a tyrannosaur skull. Not sure what specific species. What on earth? Okay. Yeah, that one seemed accurate. And I'm looking over here, like that seems rather off. And then there's this problem.
He looks happy.
Yeah, no, he looks like you know what?
Psychotic.
Like he's a Lythronax tyrannosaur, which lived over in no, wait, he's from Utah. I'm mistaking him for another species. It was species from Uzbekistan. The problem is the other one on the left looks a bit dull. He's almost got like a bit of a bulldog sort of a persona to him. You know what? Maybe I think certain dogs or cats have had this issue. Let's keep going. The results show that only some dinosaurs had eye sockets that were elliptical or keyhole shaped. Oh, that's actually a pretty good description as to how many species of theropods, at least certain species of tyrannosaurs, maybe not so much for different allosaurs, and their distinct eye socket shape. However, all of those were large carnivorous dinosaurs with skull lengths of 1 meter, 3.3 feet, or more. Yeah, I wonder if at least different species of Allosaurus, maybe the largest species might have been pushing that length, but it was slightly smaller. But definitely different species of larger Carcharodontosaurs. In fact, let's look up Giganotosaurus just to check. Giganotosaurus. Considering it's probably something that we see in different species of the larger Spinosaurs. Trying to think of certain, well, megalosaurs. Technically, Spinosaurs are the megalosaurs.
Oh yeah, we'll take this.
Maybe
AI.
larger Torvosaurs. And yeah, let's bring up like a painting. Maybe if even a skull is on there as well. Yeah, the Jurassic World Dominion Giganotosaurus or Giganotosaurus had a lot of problems. Its tail should not be close to the ground like this. The osteoderms are extremely exaggerated. If Giganotosaurus even had osteoderms running along the its vertebrae, cervical vertebrae, or the neck region, as well as its skull. Even the teeth alone are quite off. Also, the tongue shouldn't be in position in that way. Should have lips. Um, Well, also if there's a skull available too. But, the teeth well, there should be lips on this individual, though I do like the overall, picture. The problem is the arms should not be pointing towards the rear, or at least the hands in general. I think they're also a little too stiff. They should be a bit more towards the sides and have a bit of flexibility or mobility. It looks like you can barely just turn his hand in that, um, stance, but it's just in the incorrect, um, disposition anyway. The legs are a bit too stiff. I'd say Tyrannosaurus had some of the most robust hind limbs of any group of theropod dinosaurs, though the large Carcharodontosaur species approached it, considering Giganotosaurus is a member of the Carcharodontosaur lineage of theropods,
This guy looks like he has frog legs.
because he does. Everything about him is suggesting he has amphibian DNA, or at least some type of frog, or maybe a toad, not so much a frog. Um, some pterosaur up above, like a distant relative of like Pterodastro.
Wait, did
Um,
you say pterodastro?
Pterodastro. Yeah, this individual has a lot of issues too. It's almost like somebody took a Torvosaur skull and stuck it onto a Giganotosaurus, but even then, it's quite off. And I think the rib cage or the exposed ribs, somewhat exposed, they're supposed to somewhat add more character to the dinosaur, in this case, this toy. But they would be completely concealed when looking at a healthy individual. Interesting. So apparently, Giganotosaurus does not really have, except this is a computer model. That took me a few seconds.
It is?
Yeah, I I think it's based off of a real skeleton, but there's something about it seems computer imaged.
No, no, there's another picture of it with 2 people in it.
Oh, weird. Well, um, the skull is definitely, at least the eye socket is much different from T Rex, which is to be expected considering Tyrannosaurus is T Rex and all of the other tyrannosaurs were very distantly related to the Carcharodontosaurs. Carcharodontosaurs were a group of the Carnosaur lineage of theropods, whereas the Tyrannosaurs were a group of the Coelurosaur lineage of theropods. Even the nostril is, a bit different in structure, and the anorbital fenestra is immense in Giganotosaurus, which is that hole that's in between the nostril and the eye socket. The mandibular fenestra might be a bit more narrow when looking at T Rex, where it's a bit rounder. So we might have to bring up a T Rex skull in general. Let's see the arms. Trying to think. Well, obviously, considering we're comparing it to T Rex, Giganotosaurus is going to have larger arms. It's still a big question as to whether or not these animals would have used them for somewhat killing their prey. It's very possible. These arms are definitely capable of taking out any animal today. But when comparing to the much more heavily built sauropods and certain species of even ornithopods during the Middle Cretaceous, considering Giganotosaurus lived in Argentina, Chile, around 98 million years ago during the beginning of the late Cretaceous period. The 98, I guess you could say, somewhere between 97 and 103 million years ago is considered the Middle Cretaceous. This is of a different T Rex specimen, but even looking at him, the eye socket is drastically different. That's where you can identify the bit of a key shape. But certain other T Rex skulls are a bit more distinct, and we have also found far more T Rex skulls compared to Giganotosaurus. And as you can tell, the anorbital fenestra, so the hole, not the smaller one in front, but in between the nostril and the eye socket, is far rounder and shorter in width compared to Giganotosaurus's more ovalish shaped fenestra, anorbital fenestra. And the mandibular fenestra, yeah, that's what I was wondering, is very narrow in T Rex compared to Giganotosaurus, which is quite astounding. And another thing, it seems to be several more of those sensory holes along the tips of the roots of the T Rex's jawline, which is not something I believe that you see, or at least it's as distinct in Giganotosaurus. I guess you could say that the nostrils are also much more narrow as well. Now, another thing, the difference between T Rex and Giganotosaurus when looking at the eye sockets is that if you stand directly in front of both carnivores, T Rex can see you perfectly well, just like a gray wolf. Whereas Giganotosaurus is going to be a bit uneasy or nervous as to what little midget is standing in front of him. Like, oh geez, is this another one of like the younger Giganotosaurs? But it smells like a um, mammal. He's probably going to have a bit of trouble identifying. Well, no, that's not true. Actually, Giganotosaurus would have a decent sense of smell. Maybe not to the same extent as T Rex, but you could easily train one to identify a wide variety of different species of mammals. But the reason I said that is because Giganotosaurus, like most species of Archosaurs, not Archosaurs, Carnosaurs, have more of a peripheral type of vision. So they see better towards the side, behind themselves, less so directly in front of them. Whereas T Rex would be a bit more uneasy if he were standing towards the side, despite being nothing but a very weird tasting snack. Also, if you're adding cloth and rubber, all other things. So let's see what else. Um, okay, so the researcher. Dr. Laudenschlager compared to the eye sockets of 410 fossilized specimens from the Mesozoic era, including dinosaurs and their close relatives such as crocodiles. The researcher found that most species, particularly herbivores, had circular eye sockets. However, large carnivores with skulls longer than 1 meter, 3.3 feet, often had elliptical or keyhole shaped eye sockets as adults, although they tended to have circular sockets as juveniles. Well, I guess that would depend on the species of theropod in general. The odd thing is, when it comes to different species of theropods, like what we see in T Rex as well as Giganotosaurus, is that the eye sockets are still going to be quite different, but I can see where there is a very striking resemblance. I mean, it's a bit different, I guess you could say. T Rex is a bit more of that central um corner over in its eye socket where it's a bit more blunt, or I guess you could say less narrow or pointish in the central part of the Giganotosaurus snout. But their anorbital fenestra, that middle hole, because I think we should take this into account as well, is drastically different. Same thing for, I mean, even the nostrils to a lesser extent. But um, I know we're focusing on the eye sockets of different carnivores, but I just think we should take all of their different like holes within the skull into account. I think we should probably grab a certain species of herbivore, maybe even look at basic ones like Triceratops, Brachiosaurus. So I guess let's look up Triceratops. So Triceratops. Now, Triceratops, I know I use the word basic, but just more of animals that certain herbivores that many are somewhat familiar with. Hmm. They mentioned smaller eye sockets. So obviously, well, they also mentioned that the herbivores have very circular eye sockets in general, which is true for at least this Triceratops specimen.
Here's a fun one.
Also, a very large anorbital fenestra. Actually seems somewhat similar to that skeleton. This model, you could say for certain Ceratops individuals, is a bit off. I think it has a bit too large of the snout or the mouth in general, not necessarily the whole skull. There should be also horn like or basically small horns covering the exterior of or just the edges of the frill in general. So the back end of the skull. Now that horn on the side can vary depending on the species of ceratopsian, but when looking at triceratops, it should be, I think, a bit lower on the skull. It seems a bit too high. This one, it's better when it comes to those small horns, so there could possibly be a larger number. The beak could be slightly more pointy, and I think the horn might be a little too far along the snout. It probably needs to be a bit further back when looking at how it aligns with the nostrils. It is interesting when looking at animals or herbivores like Triceratops. The nostrils are not very large, they are small.
Hey, I found an albino.
Though it's likely that Triceratops had a very decent sense of smell. So it's odd as to why they have somewhat small nostrils. But this has been somewhat seen in different species of animals where the nostrils are a bit less open compared to others that actually don't have a great sense of smell, which probably makes somewhat sense, needing a larger nostril area to obtain smells compared to others that have better sense of smell. I thought he was a statue for a second. I didn't realize it's actually supposed to depict what an albino triceratops in some lake over in Lake Cretaceous, Montana, which I think looks um hmm. I guess he looks good. Also you have some Lake Cretaceous birds. There seems to be a Torosaurus towards the background on the right side. And I'm guessing another Triceratops further over. But um yeah, I think the nasal horn is better on this individual. The horns, I guess I just have to look at another Triceratops skull, but I think the frill should maybe be a bit more, maybe a bit larger compared to its body size, because depending on the Triceratops species, it would have a larger frill. But besides that, it seems decent. Triceratops also mostly it looks like inhabited different types of wetland and swamp ecosystems, not just due to the different types of sediment that we find Triceratops bones in different parts of South Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, but also when you're looking at the feet of Triceratops, they're very wide compared to their body size. This is not a trait that you see in another more renowned, well, I guess you could say as renowned herbivore from the late Jurassic period of the United States, Stegosaurus. Stegosaurus has very small feet compared to its body size. So likely avoiding different muddy areas like swamps. Okay, so this Triceratops, I'm guessing, is a bit of a younger individual. It also might be a specimen of the more lightly built species too, but it has a much smaller frill. Um, Even the nasal horn also seems um, almost, I just say, a bit less in width compared to Triceratops horridus. So the horn is quite high up in the skull. That's just because there are over 100 different species of ceratopsian that have been discovered. I think it's probably well over 150 different species. Sometimes you just simply mix up where the specific side horns are supposed to occur. Same thing can happen with different species like the smaller bipedal ceratopsians from the early Cretaceous to late Jurassic. Technically, you had the smaller bipedal ceratopsians during the late Cretaceous, like at the very end of the period as well, around 69 to 70 million years ago. Ceratopsians, like unlike Triceratops, which could weigh as much as 15 tons or more, you had ceratopsians maybe weighing about 80 pounds or a little over 35 kilograms. Let's also bring up Stegosaurus. Good. Now he's going to have a much smaller skull. Stegos. And yeah, Stegosaurus
What,
standing
the
off
skull or the whole thing?
both. But when it comes to Stegosaurus, I mean, this animal has a skull in many cases not even as large as a horse's skull, despite the animal weighing as much as 5 tons. And Stegosaurus is probably not going to have a very good sense of vision. The same thing likely occurred with Triceratops. Um, well, what is interesting is that because I was wondering if Stegosaurus had a much larger eye socket compared to its body size than other species of herbivores, and it very well seems to. So I think we have a sauropodomorph on the right over here, and I believe the Stegosaurus is in the middle. But who is the one on the far left? I think it's an herbivore. Is it just another species of stegosaur? Because that is the one on the right over here looks distinctively like a plateosauromorph. Does he even by chance say? Or no? Wow. Hmm. I'm wondering. No, I was going to say a Therizinosaur. Yeah, it's a stegosaur. So, quite large eye sockets compared to its body size. So I might have been wrong on the vision. Maybe I was thinking of certain other species of stegosaurs, like maybe members of the Kentrosaur lineage. There's a few other families. The nostrils also seem to be quite large compared to its body size.
Is this
Well, at
from a
least compared
game?
to Triceratops. Yeah, but this is the technically you could say the Lost Jurassic Park: The Lost World model in Jurassic World Evolution. But this Stegosaurus is I don't think it's a bad model when just to its iconic look, but it is off in many ways. The core of this animal is far too large compared to its body size. It's a bit off. This is better, at least when it comes to the skull, it's a bit too wide. Um, whereas, like, I think the skull structure of the Lost World Stegosaurus looked a bit better. The plates are better on this model, however. Also, how the core of the animal correlates with the rest of its body. The tail, I can't tell if it's like about its length. I think the spikes or the thagomizers look somewhat decent, though they might be a bit long. Considering on larger stegosaurus species, they would be probably about that length compared to its body size. This could represent a smaller stegosaurus individual, but it still has quite rather small plates compared to its overall size, and the osteoderms or the plates on its back seem rather out of place, and they're not aligning with each other well in this instance. I think the skull is a bit better looking, and yeah, also the eye socket's a bit more. Well, we can see the eye now.
Okay, and I have a happy Stegosaurus.
I think also the toes look okay. Yeah, see, this one I don't believe is a Stegosaurus. I think it's supposed to, though I'm a bit confused. I think it's supposed to represent its ancestor Hesperosaurus, which lived over in Colorado and Wyoming around 155 to 156 million years ago. So it would have likely coexisted with other species of Ceratosaurus, which is the carnivore that is being hit in this image. Um, I think the feet look pretty good. Actually, I think the overall body looks quite decent because I think Hesperosaurus was a bit wider compared to any of the Stegosaurus species. I also think the Thagomizers are well aligned. It's a bit of a question when it comes to the plates on its back. There's something off. And also when it comes to the size of them,
Well, that
maybe it
plate's really weird.
yeah, maybe it varied compared to I mean, regardless of the individual, but it just seems something seems off because every single plate has its own distinct shape, which probably in some instances makes sense because when you're looking at like spots when it comes to different cheetah or leopard individuals today, I know I'm referring to a mammal and also a carnivore, but it is somewhat similar because in the end, Both the cats and the stegosaur did derive from a common ancestor.
and there can be only one.
Yeah. What's the other thing? He has a very they're giving him a very wide mouth angle, which makes this picture, quite unique among the, stegosaur depictions. Oh, yeah, that's another thing when it comes to stegosaurs. Stegosaurus has very, long hind limbs compared to its body size, as well as compared to the forelimbs, and it's the opposite of what we see in different species certain species of sauropods, like the brachiosaurs. In fact, let's bring up brachiosaurs. Probably afterwards, head back to the article and then come back to the sauropod. Brachiosaurus. Well, at least from, what we can see here, might need to get a closer look. Oh, but the hind limbs, I guess it's not as, much of a difference compared to the hind limbs and forelimbs of Stegosaurus, but they are clearly, longer compared to, their hind limbs. Yeah, but when it comes to the eye sockets, they are quite large in Brachiosaurus. And I'm not sure if in this image, this might be from the 1990s. There are also certain stickers with this Brachiosaurus. Because I'm trying to see where the nostrils are. I think it's like a tiny little area on the front, or he doesn't have any. He's going to have issues. Also, his teeth are a bit too pointy, almost like that of a smaller carnivore. It should be a bit more like a wide triangle to an extent. And also, um, they would be sharper, just not in the same um, shape as that of a theropod, like Allosaurus, which it coexisted with. This Brachiosaur, I don't mind the overall model. There could be a bit more muscle on the neck, not too much. He also seems to be lacking nostrils. So apparently, these Brachiosaurs just hate noses, or whoever created them did not like noses. Um, yeah, I guess you can see a slight difference when it comes to the shoulders on the forelimbs compared to the hind limbs. Just being a bit longer. Brachiosaurus was somewhere around 75 to 80 feet in length, or pushing around 25 to 26 meters, and probably weighed around 35 to 45 tons, at least with the larger individuals. Brachiosaurs were much more heavily built compared to their distant relatives, like different species of titanosaurs, as well as different species of diplodocids. So, Brachiosaurus also on all fours, or um, being quadrupedal, meaning when not rearing up on its hind legs, could probably still reach a height of somewhere between 30 to 45 feet. Okay, let's take a look at what's going on in the research. Okay, these observations suggest that larger carniv- carnivorous species evolved keyhole shaped eye sockets over time, but that they developed this shape as adults, not juveniles. To study the impact of eye socket shape on skull structure and function, Dr. Lautenschlager compared the forces that a theoretical model reptile skull with five different eye socket shapes was subjected to during biting simulations. This, in some cases, a bit more um, heard of in studies when it comes to testing like different saber-toothed cat bite forces, um, or well, occasionally T-Rex, but I guess not in this sort of a circumstance. He also compared the maximum eyeball sizes that could be accommodated by model skulls of Tyrannosaurus rex with either a circular or a keyhole shaped socket. Heel-shaped eye sockets deformed less during biting compared to circular eye sockets.
Eye sockets?
Is that what I said? And helped to reduce the stress that skulls were subjected to by distributing forces along stronger parts of the skull behind the eye socket. So basically, less pressure was occurring on the keyhole-shaped eye sockets. I guess that's not too it's not too surprising. Herbivores tend to have overall sharper teeth compared to the carnivores, at least when it comes to different species of dinosaurs. However, the Tyrannosaurus rex model with a circular eye socket could accommodate an eyeball with a volume 7 times larger than the model with the keyhole shaped socket. Oh, that's interesting. Huh. I guess I have to do some research into how this equates with bite force overall. Evolving narrower eye sockets may have reduced the space available for eyeballs within theropod skulls while increasing the space available for jaw muscles and enhancing the robustness of their skulls. That's actually what I was guessing, considering this seems to be quite the case in at least the larger species of carnivores. We could take a look at some, um, like a medium sized and a small sized species of theropod. This may have helped them bite more powerfully at the expense of accommodating larger eyes, which previous research has proposed can improve visual perception. Well, I'm also wondering when it comes to the bite force of different species of herbivores like Triceratops, Brachiosaurus, despite animals like Brachiosaurus, even Stegosaurus having relatively small heads compared to their body size. Even the same for different species of Nodosaurs. I'd say less so with the certain species of ornithopods, like the smaller ancestors to like different species of iguanodontids. Um,
Wait,
but
so smaller eyes made for a stronger bite force?
more of like you could say that, but like a narrower eye socket in general. Um, Considering there were certain parts of the eye socket where there wasn't really an eyeball, but there were other muscles um, accommodating for the eye in general. Oh, okay. So let's take a look at Stylophosauros' skull. Maybe even bring up Velociraptor after that. Dilophosaurus. Now, Dilophosaurus, for its time, was immense. Probably one of the largest species of carnivores to have evolved at that point.
Oh, so you're saying he wasn't the size that they put him in Jurassic Park?
Yeah, Jurassic Park, that individual was probably or likely just a juvenile. So, Dilophosaurus in general could reach well over 20 feet in length or 6 meters, probably weighs somewhere around 1,800 pounds or a little over 800 kilograms. It's a bit of a debate as to what specifically Dilophosaurus was feeding on. There have been certain theories as to Dilophosaurus mainly feeding on different species of fish. And though the prosauropod or sauropodomorph diet is a lot more accepted, we need another Dilophosaur skull. This is not an authentic individual. Like the teeth are completely out of proportion. Even there's barely a curvature in the upper part of the skull or the upper jaw. Also, the crest seems well um seems too robust. Also, when it comes to yeah, the teeth in general, too they're not narrow like triangle and don't seem sharp at all. This is better. Dilophosaurus did have one of the largest crests compared to its body size of at least any species of theropod. But looking at the teeth are much better, and there's that specific curvature on the upper jaw. Now, the eye sockets of Dilophosaurus are interesting. They are very different from what we see in later species of the Carnosaur, the Coelurosaur lineage. Dilophosaurus did not belong to either. It is a member of simply the new Theropoda lineage of dinosaurs, and more specifically, Dilophosauridae. But The nostrils. I wonder if the nostrils would have been a bit more towards positioned towards the front of the very front of the snout. Maybe I'm off. If that's specifically the nostril, it's Dilophosaurus definitely has a very unique position for that distinctive organ. So that's interesting. The anorbital fenestra is almost triangular in structure. That is interesting. That's not something you really see. That's not something you see at all in at least T Rex. Not even so much in Giganotosaurus. Giganotosaurus more of an ovalish type of shape, but not in this form. A rather small mandibular fenestra. It's not as narrow as T Rex's mandibular fenestra, but it is smaller than Giganotosaurus's. Now, technically, Dilophosaurus is a very distant relative to these two large predators. However, it is still a very old uncle. Now, oh, also when it comes to the eye socket specifically, it's a bit more aligned with Giganotosaurus itself, considering when it comes to the overall shape, it's more of like an ovalish look. Well, actually, now that I think of it, Giganotosaurus had a closer eye socket shape to T Rex, but T Rex, it was a bit more of a shorter type of, um, I guess, an intrusion into the central part of the eye socket. And it was a bit flatter, I guess, a bit longer over in Giganotosaurus's eye socket. But with this Dilophosaurus, there isn't any intrusion into the central part of the eye socket. It is completely like an ovalish shape. Okay, let's head to the next article. So, from Sci News, some plesiosaurs may have lived in freshwater river systems. Paleontologists have found several fossilized bones of plesiosaurs, traditionally thought to be sea creatures, in the Kem beds, a 100 million-year-old river system in what is now Morocco. Wow. No, wait a second. I have heard of certain plesiosaur fossils being discovered in this specific fossil formation in Africa. But this sounds like several specimens have been discovered there. I thought they were just simply fragments. So let's take a deeper look. Some shorter snouted ichthyosaur. Now, this could simply be in the coastal seas too, where Spinosaurus off the coast of Morocco, Egypt would have inhabited during the mid Cretaceous around 98 million years ago. Question is who? Plesiosaurs, near to lizard in Greek, are a group of extinct marine reptiles that roamed the vast seas of the Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous periods. First found in 1823 by a fossil hunter, Mary Anning. These creatures had small heads, long necks, and four long flippers. And Mary Anning, she was a paleontologist over in England and one of the first, or probably at least we know of, first female paleontologist to actually name a variety of different ammonites, as well as, I believe, certain species of ichthyosaurs and plesiosaurs over in England. Their fossils have been found on every continent on Earth, with key discoveries made in Australia, Europe, and North America. Yeah, I guess you could say a little less so over in Africa and Asia, but many marine deposits over on different areas in Europe as well as North America. Pliosaurs too have been discovered quite abundant in different areas of Europe as well as Australia. So the Chemchem plesiosaurs belong to Leptocleididae, a group of small-bodied plesiosaurs that were widely distributed in nearshore and non-marine settings in the early Cretaceous epoch. Actually, let's keep going. These fossils are the first freshwater plesiosaurs from Morocco and are among the youngest representatives of Leptocleididae, said University of Bath paleontologist Nick Longrich and his colleagues. The plesiosaur fossils from the Kemkem beds include bones and teeth from 3-meter long adults. 3 meter? 3 point. Oh, okay, like around 10 feet. There were certain plesiosaurs around this size, a bit more common in the late Jurassic, around 165 million years ago. in different parts of Europe, but they would also occur at this point. But I think this species is likely unnamed. And an arm bone from a 1.5 meter long baby. I'd call that a juvenile, wouldn't call it a baby. But that's somewhere around 5 feet. It's scrappy stuff, but isolated bones actually tell us a lot about ancient ecosystems and animals in them. I think it's supposed to state animals that they belong to, unless he's talking about those microorganisms, a bunch of tardigrades or water bears inside their bones. But anyway, what about these guys? Hmm. I'm just going to keep going. So they're so much more common than skeletons. They give you more information to work with. Um, I think it depends on how many of these bones you're working with. If it's a whole intact skeleton, it's going to give you a lot more info than an individual bone. Let's see. So the bones and teeth were found scattered and in different localities, not as a skeleton. So each bone and each tooth is a different animal. We have over a dozen animals in this collection. Well, okay, if you're referring to different a variety of bones, separate bones that are just belong to different species of animals, then yes, you're going to get a lot more about or from the ecosystem just simply due to the wide variety of species you're finding from these bones. The Chemchem fossils hint that these creatures routinely lived and fed in fresh water alongside frogs, crocodiles, turtles, fish, and the huge aquatic dinosaur Spinosaurus. Spinosaurus was not the only species of dinosaur around here. You had different species of sauropods, other species of carcharodontosaurs. Spinosaurus is a megalosaur. And we have evidence now that there was another species of Spinosaurus existing, much smaller than Spinosaurus aegypticus, the species that it's referring to, as well as different species of ornithopods or more of the proto-hadrosaurs. You could say guanodontids at this point. These fossils suggest the plesiosaurs were adapted to tolerate fresh water, possibly even spending their lives there, like today's river dolphins. Wow, okay, this is new. Now, there also is that recent discovery of mosasaur fossils being found in what would be a freshwater deposit over in different parts of Montana and Wyoming. Which, I mean, finding plesiosaurs now in freshwater deposits now seems not really that surprising considering the other discovery. If plesiosaurs and mosasaurs were capable of tolerating fresh water, in this case, thriving in it, then I would assume different species of the short-necked pliosaurs would be in freshwater river systems or even lakes as well occasionally. The ichthyosaurs too. Practically most lineages of um, marine reptiles, but probably only specific species within those groups. So we don't really know why the plesiosaurs are in freshwater. It's funny. It's a bit controversial, but who's to say that because we paleontologists have always called them marine reptiles, they had to live in the sea? Lots of marine lineages invaded fresh water. Yeah, you could simply call them aquatic reptiles, and that could work for any freshwater or saltwater organism. Now, when looking at crocodiles today or even alligators, they are semi-aquatic. Whereas when it comes to the marine reptiles, they are fully aquatic. There were different species of crocodilomorphs that were semi-aquatic, like the early Cretaceous Sarcosuchus, which inhabited this area of Africa about 10 to 12 million years before Spinosaurus. And likely these species of plesiosaurs that Spinosaurus coexisted with evolved. Um, and I'm also referring to a 30-foot or 9-meter, 4-ton species of crocodilomorph. Let's see, is there anything else? No. All right. Well, thanks for joining. And from prehistoric to present, my name is Ethan. This is Creature Guide Live Daily News. Happy International Plesiosaur Day. And remember that nothing is better than all animals all the time.